PA and Charch.
Shall we begin?
Football Feast.
He's got big balls.
I knew we was going to beat them clowns.
Oh, no!
Wow, wasn't that fun?
Oh, no!
The game is over.
Let's go. Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
So that would be an L for today.
Hashtag Faith Radio.
The season can't end like that.
PA and Charch.
I'm a kid, so I call it KFAN.
So it's first and goal for the LA Rams from the 5-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings. Matthew Stafford under center. 2 tight ends to the right. Play action to Kyren Williams. He boots out to the left, throws over the middle. They lost Kyren. Wide open. Touchdown, Los Angeles Rams. It was a 5-yard touchdown where Stafford went play action to Williams. He spun around to the left, and Kyren leaked into the center of the end zone. He was wide open, 6-0 Rams. Third down, it's 3rd and 8 from the Rams 48. C.J. Ham to the left of Sam Darnold out of the shotgun. The Rams rush forward. Darnold hit as he throws, and he throws an interception to the right side. Right to Kobe Durant, Jordan Addison, the intended receiver. And now the Rams have sacked Sam Darnold 3 times. And first and 10 from the Vikings 13. Stafford shotgun, 2 receivers left and right. Here's a big blitz. Matthew hit hard. He's going to dump down, and it's caught at the 7-yard line, and it's caught for a touchdown by Davis Allen. Davis Allen with a touchdown. His first touchdown this season, including the regular season. And the Rams have a 23-3 lead. 4 receivers. Darnold steps away from pressure for a second, but then he is sacked. Darnold back to pass. The pocket is claustrophobic, and he's sacked. Steps up in the pocket. He's holding it too long. Just run. Throw it, man! Bounces around in the pocket, and he's sacked for the 6th time. The Rams have hit the pick 6 with sack. Sam bouncing around, looking, holding the ball, and getting destroyed again. Just throw it. Back to pass, and he's taken down for an 8th time. 8 sacks on Sam Darnold.
Well, he could have thrown that football easily, but decided not to, right? And took another sack.
Well, that's 9.
So that's
been sacked 9 times.
9 for today. I mean, that's an epic number.
Hey. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And here we are for the Friday football
Feast!
Loserville sounds better in FM.
That's great. Just
there you go.
Super special, in fact.
Yeah.
So, who do you guys like for this Ravens-Bills tilt? Baltimore is a slight road favorite, and Paul Charchian and Eric Nordquist, good morning. Who y'all like in that game?
Good morning. Nordo, I went into the playoffs leaning more towards Buffalo being the AFC representative of the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Now that I've spent this week breaking down the game, I'm on the Ravens.
You're on the Ravens?
I've flipped to the Ravens, yeah.
What happened?
It's
What happened?
Is it really that exasperating?
It is a little bit because it's so close. This is a 1-point game between 2 great teams. And let me mention this at the outset. I think this is the most important thing to know about the Buffalo versus Baltimore game.
Is it the reality?
No.
Okay.
One of these quarterbacks and one of these teams is going to further cement this notion that they are playoff losers, that they cannot get to the big game, that they don't have it in them to find a way to get to the Super Bowl. These are the 2 best teams in football. This is
that the reality?
That's the reality.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Got to get my pen in my pad here.
That's right. You should be taking notes right now. This is effectively a Super Bowl, and both of these quarterbacks could play phenomenal games, and this thing gets decided some other way that has nothing to do with Josh Allen being good enough. Nothing to do with Lamar Jackson being good enough.
Okay.
And the fact that these teams have faltered mostly against Kansas City is not, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of this generation, and losing in Kansas City, since all they do is play in Kansas City,
right,
does not make these quarterbacks incapable of winning the big one. I don't think. I believe, even though, ideally they would go to Kansas City and they would go win those games. But I'm going to get ahead of the narrative that's going to develop Sunday night based on whoever loses this game. These are not bad quarterbacks. These are not bad teams. These are great teams. They should not be meeting this early, in my opinion. And I'm already bristling at the narrative that one of these quarterbacks isn't good enough.
Come for a prediction and leave with a handbook for life.
Well, you
guys liking this game? It's Ravens -1.5.
Yeah, I don't even know how to follow that. Well, here's what I'll say. I just think Lamar, good times, bad times in the postseason, as Charch has laid out, really for both these QBs. I think Lamar's playing the best football of his career. I think the Ravens are as healthy or healthier than they have been in recent years. And that's really key, because their ability to run the ball now with Derrick Henry versus trying to prop up the Gus Edwards and the oft-injured J.K. Dobbins and just what they've had to go through with that. Their tight end combo that PA and I actually were kind of talking about that earlier this week in memoriam of the Purple, is looking at some of the teams in the playoffs and where they're finding their success. And it's coming through the run game, and it's coming through an elite tight end game. And I love Isaiah Likely. I love Mark Andrews, by the way, his resurgence, maybe last 4 or 5 games. I think he's got a touchdown. He's got 5 or 6 touchdowns, I think, in like the last 2 months. So I love them in this spot as their defense. That's really been the key for them this year. Losing games earlier in the year is their defense just allowing too many points on the board. I like them in this spot, because if they don't win, I will never like the Ravens in this spot again.
It's interesting you go down that road the way you did, because one of the things I crafted for the opening segment this morning was actually speaking for you. So I'm going to speak for Mad Producer right now.
Okay.
And tell me if I have gone too far with said sentence. 3-2. I believe Nordo thinks this is the year Lamar and the Ravens push through to the old Super Bowl.
Oh my God. Do I think that is the case?
Yes.
I believe.
And that was intel achieved from a conversation somehow, some way involving the Ravens within the last 2 months. It might have been 2 months ago, where you made a bold proclamation in the neighborhood of, I believe this is the year Lamar and the Ravens push through to the old Super Bowl. And clearly that vibe has not changed.
Yeah, I absolutely love this team. I love John Harbaugh, and I love the idea of what they've been trying to do for the last handful of years. It is truly coming down to Lamar standing in this moment. And so I'm choosing to get on the faith and the belief train of the Ravens, of Lamar, not missing wide open Zay Flowers, not missing Rashad Bateman back center of the end zone, that this run game is so solidified and so aggressive and so forceful with Derrick Henry. Again, the healthy aspects of this team, it comes down to one guy. Can Lamar just be Lamar in the postseason? And in 2024, I'm believing. Ravens flock, baby. Ravens flock.
One flock, one pride. The mission is Mardi Gras. 10 o'clock today, full game analysis from a cover the point spread standpoint and a fantasy standpoint at 10 a.m., 9 to noon. That's special. Charch. So what did Mike Clay and or Rick Wolf do to make it to the coveted Fantasy Hall of Fame, and who are they? And good morning.
Yeah, the Fantasy Sports Writers Hall of Fame. Mike Clay started a Pro Football Focus early. He was like, I don't know, employee 10 or something. And he brought fantasy to Pro Football Focus and generated a lot of the stats that we all rely on now, that Pro Football Focus had, but they weren't even like public facing yet. So he made all kinds of changes to Pro Football Focus. Then about 8 years ago, he got hired by ESPN and has now elevated himself to being really the lead fantasy analyst on ESPN. And really, really good guy. Love Mike, one of my favorite people.
Okay.
Rick Wolf's time in fantasy goes back. He predates me in fantasy football.
Jeez.
He's older than me. He was building fantasy style games on Prodigy for dial-up modem. And has since
a pioneer.
He is a pioneer. He's since been a part of
He's
a number
PPR
of big companies.
Pioneer.
He helped found Roto World. He helped found CBS Sportsline way back in the day when early internet. So, yeah, two guys that I've known for a long time and are now members of the FSWA, Fantasy Sports Writers Association. Mike's done a ton of content creation. Rick has just, I think, hired a lot of content creators. But yeah, both good friends, and I'm excited that they're in the Hall of Fame.
AHOF.
Interestingly, Nordo and I have been pining for updates on the ballyhooed Nintendo Switch 2.
Oh, have you?
And understand you can help.
It's all we talk about, to be honest with you.
Well, your twins are entering Nintendo Switch age.
Yeah, they
right
are.
now.
Nintendo Switch 2, and here they are.
Here they are. Okay, so the Nintendo Switch is, oh boy, it may be the best-selling console of all time, or maybe it's right behind the PS2 as the best-selling console of all time.
Okay, hold on. 2 days ago, you complained on Twitter about Jared Verse, Superman leaping, and late-hitting Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And included a cool picture at Paul Charchian. You doing okay, given the 2024 Purple has deceased and the eulogies were yesterday?
No, I'm not doing okay.
Still?
It's only been 4 days. I can be in grieving for a season that is only 4 days in the rearview mirror.
The game was Monday. The tears were Tuesday. The angst and anxiety was Wednesday. So 2 days ago, nearly 48 hours after the Fat L, the tweet is Jared Verse looking like Superman, leaping on and late hitting Sam Darnold. And this tweet at Paul Charchian included a cool picture. And the eulogies were yesterday via press conferences, and you still can't get over it.
I still have blood in my stool.
Okay.
I'm not supposed to be over it yet, right? Am I supposed
to? With the dingleberries? That's a problem.
I'm supposed to care about this team a lot during the season, and I do. I follow all the machinations, the twists and turns, the ups and downs. I ride the highs. I ride the lows.
Yeah.
When the season ends in crushing fashion, it's going to take me more than 4 days to fully process that.
Mother.
I'm not. Are you telling me you are just, you've just turned the page?
There's a certain.
Just looking ahead to 2025.
There's a certain degree of peace associated with finality. I needed the eulogies. And those took place yesterday with press conferences from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's time to move on, reinvigorate and or reinvent the new body, and charge anew.
Yeah. Talk to me in a week. I can, I'm not there yet. I think everybody gets to grieve in their own timetable, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were just telling Chad a couple of feasts ago. I'm not over the 2009 NFC Championship game completely. I'm not fully healed from that yet.
Liner.
So I need more help. I need more time.
You tuned in for 9 to noon and instead received wine to noon. Jack Greenway, former game-changing linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, is on the presentation today, courtesy of Grey Duck Vodka and Grey Duck Spirits, and that's around the corner. Alec Lewis of The Athletic and the Alec Lewis Show podcast. He's on the radio show later. Nordo produces. He's Paul Charchian, and I'm Paul Allen. Welcome to the Friday football feast. Well, at least we got some money to give away.
The Fan wants to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword green. You might win $1,000 with the keyword green at KFAN.com.
Chad Greenway, a weekly guest on the Friday Football Feast, courtesy of Grey Duck Vodka and Grey Duck Spirits, one of the great defensive players in the history of Minnesota Vikings football. And we have no down memory lane we go for Chad Greenway's illustrious career against...
We do in this sense, Paul.
The Philadelphia Eagles. What?
The week that it's all over, I've got a bunch of questions lined up for you for when it ends, when the season ends.
Okay.
And you experience that 10 times? How long was your career? 10 years?
11 years.
11? You experienced it 11 times.
I wasn't playing my rookie year, but yeah.
That's a good point. All right, start here, because Paul was mocking me that 4 days later I'm not over this season.
I'm not mocking.
Yeah, you are.
I'm assisting.
You're
I'm
mocking.
aiding. I'm counseling to. I'm ministering to. And hold on, just one thing here on what you just said. Good morning, Chad.
And good morning.
Early fourth quarter of a game that was on Monday, and now it's a Friday. Their early fourth quarter, Paul Charchian, at Paul Charchian via the tweet machine, had enough. And quote tweeted a draft-related tweet involving the Vikings. Now, the game's still going on. And all the co-host wrote was guard, corner, guard, center, corner, guard.
I always love that one.
I mean, completely went pear-shaped, didn't you? And you know, he may not know this, or he may, and he just went pear-shaped, as all of us are wont to do. As of now, the Minnesota Vikings have 4 draft picks. They have the 24th pick in the first round. They have a third rounder and a couple of fifths. Yet the apoplectic co-host of the Friday Football Feast quote tweets guard, corner, guard, center, corner, guard. I went pear-shaped. And good morning.
And good morning. Hey, listen, I mean, we're all you and you all us. I mean, it's one of those situations where you watch that football game and, you know,
it's a band of bloodied brothers.
And it's the 2 weeks in a row bit. It's you just get off of this last game of the regular season where you just walk away feeling like a complete L. Right. Like you dropped the ball, all these opportunities in the red zone, all these chances to go win the home field advantage, which completely flips this whole thing on its head. Now we're still in the playoffs, preparing for week 2 with playoffs, and you leave that game with this mentality from a player standpoint, from the locker room standpoint, if we have to flush and move, like just flush it and move along and find a way as a professional to get into this next week and reinvigorate, re-excite. But the reality of that opportunity that was lost was the hangover we couldn't get over. And you just kind of felt it. Like, did you see the sideline with a lot of energy and a lot of excitement and a lot of looking forward to, even early in that game? And you kind of look at them and say, mentally, where are we? You with this incredible regular season, but it just goes to show you that doesn't matter. You're in the tournament with a chance to beat a team that you could have beaten. Give all the credit to the Rams for the win, but I get the grind. I get the mentality.
Now all of a sudden, perceived lack of energy on the sideline has caught a stray.
Yep.
I think what do you think about this, Chad? Was their spirit stolen from them with the fumble touchdown that was not?
Can we talk about that play? Like, did we invent a new rule?
I think we did.
I think you can now no longer fumble as a quarterback. They've now gone so far to break the rules in favor of...
Well, the quarterbacks don't have enough advantages.
In favor of 31 quarterbacks in this league. Because I love how they replayed the face mask on Sam Darnold late in that game. That was fun to relive.
Yeah, this is great.
Thanks for that one.
Nordo and I have done this all week. Now we get to hear it.
2 different officials looking right at that face mask.
That's funny.
That's wonderful.
And
sorry I brought it up.
But you know, so they invented a new rule. It's reminded me of 2009. Let's go back to that one because that was fun. You literally changed the overtime rules the next year,
right?
Because we thought this was dumb and silly. We should change it.
And now we're going to change the seating rules because the Vikings got jobbed.
Let it out.
The seating rules are going to change as well.
No, they're not.
Having said all of that, you look back to that play and the deflation on the sidelines. You look back to that play. And
maybe I found the wrong one.
The made up rule, and here we are. And you felt like that fourth down in midfield, end of the first half.
Oh God.
All criticism aside, was chips all in early. Yeah. We got bluffed in early. and we need to just be patient. We get the ball coming out of the second half, and you get a stop, get to the halftime. We're in the football game, and then all of a sudden we're not in the football game.
Just let it all out.
Yeah, so grind.
So then 11 minutes and change to go in the game. They're down multiple scores. They run 3 times and pass 1 time, and you can go ahead and let that out too.
I was actually just going to bring that up. It's funny you said that.
Everybody wants them to run for 19 years. They
Lack of
run, and now
urgency.
everybody hates it. Lack of urgency and sideline catching strays. Go ahead.
Listen, here's the reality. We can talk about this all day long. You guys talked about it all week. I come on the radio show once a week, so it's fun for me to get this back out.
The therapeutic Davenport of love is for all.
The reality is this: one team's going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's not going to be us. And I just walked in and said, I've been a fan of this team since I've retired for now 8 years.
Yeah.
And man, am I one of you guys now.
Mm-hmm.
It is frustrating to come back on the other side of this thing after a tough loss and sit there and just eat it. And here we are. So now we're talking off season. I got to
get back up on the mic.
Got to look at PA all off season. He's gonna have his beard's gonna be grown out. He's gonna be a little grayer.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
And here we're gonna be. He's gonna be going to the combine soon and looking at young talent and here we are. Oh, okay, careful.
Right. What do you know about his evenings in Indianapolis?
It's Indianapolis. Yeah.
Brass rail, brass ring. I mean, okay, now Paul Charch.
I had to cut my cast off to work a shift.
Do what you got to do.
Take care, Polly Wally.
All right, so this diatribe included
Down memory lane we go.
And that's where Paul Charchian was going before the therapeutic Davenport of love now has all of its 4 legs broken, and we're going to reapply the plastic and put it away until next season when we undoubtedly play Brian McKnight's One Last Cry. Paul Charchian is the co-host of the Friday Football Feast.
Down memory lane we go.
How long did it take you as a player to turn the page on that season and get mentally right? Because you care so much. You've tried so hard. You're fully invested. You've put aside the entire rest of your life for 6 months. And then one day, in the span of 1 day or 3 hours, it's over. How long does it take for you to mentally put it in the rearview mirror? And if you tell me the next day you were a freaking fraud, you're just like, I just turned the page.
What year are you talking about?
It does change, right?
We're talking 3 and 13. Yeah,
we did that on Wednesday.
Pretty fast, right?
3 and 13. I was pretty comfortable with the next day. 3 and 13. Like, let's make this misery end.
Yeah.
Playoff run, playoff opportunity late in the season. When you're in it, obviously it's a lot more fun. When you're winning, it's a lot more fun. When you want to be a part of that locker room and that culture and being, just continue that thing just to keep going, it's hard. It's really hard. It's months. And in some cases with the NFC Championship game, other playoff losses, when you get later in your career and these opportunities are so fleeting, like Blair Walsh, wide left, L.
Right.
Well, you look at that and you'd be like, that very well was my, we were playing really good football.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's probably my last shot. And guess what? It was my last shot to have any chance. And now you look at, you text with Harrison Smith, you text with all these veterans who've been there forever. And like, you look at Metellus' interview, you look at all the emotion coming out of it. There's careers that are now over. There's Viking, careers that are now going to move on to someplace else. There's guys that are going to retire. There's guys that are going to come back and be part of the next team where you turn over 30% of the roster. It's over. It's done. You move along. And there's guys that walked out of that locker room in 2008, 9, 10 that you never talked to again, that you spent a lot of time with going through this stuff. So it's an emotional grind for sure.
You would have had another playoff shot. 2016 had elite defensive mind. Some elite defensive mind played you more than 10 plays a game.
I always love
that. Then all of a sudden we might have ascended instead of descended.
Thank you for saying that, because I had 10 plays in me on Monday night.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there in Wayzata, comfortable, cocktail in hand, Grey Duck. Just made a nice little Grey Duck cocktail watching the game.
Eric Swoop, though.
I know.
Eric Swoop, though. I don't know. Why do you guys have to go there?
Right.
When you
give us like one bad...
Because I get so defensive.
No, one of 2 bad pass drops you had in a career with 8 million pass drops. So the only 2 we can remember are Eric Swoop,
4th and 20 though,
and 4th and 20 Buffalo. I mean, it was just a little.
Could Anthony Barr get a little more depth on that play? Now that he's not a Viking anymore, we can talk smack. I love Anthony, but can he get a little more depth, make it a little easier for me?
It was Barr's fault, but he's not the co-host. He's not part of the Friday Football Feast. You are.
At 42, I had 10 plays in me. So at 33, I definitely had more than 10 plays.
Oh, this is working.
Not every opportunity is created equal. And, this season for the Vikings, it felt like there was a ton of belief, but certainly still unknown as you're weaving your way through with Sam Darnold. So for you mentioned, 2015, you felt like you guys were playing great and you just needed that 27-yarder to go the right direction, and you guys are on the road and potentially on a deep playoff run. But, like, what was it like in 2012 where you needed that MVP season from Adrian Peterson and you get him at the wire in the border battle? Christian Ponder is maybe his best game of his career in that finale. And then you know that Joe Webb's starting at Lambeau the next week.
Thigh bruise, though.
Thigh bruise, that
whatever it was.
50 Shades of Purple.
Well, so you think about, like you said it, every season's a little bit different. You look at that 2012 season, you could kind of emulate it to this year because you did have to have an extraordinary circumstance to get to where we were.
Right.
I think we finished 4-0 that year, maybe going out, and it was a guy kind of got to have it games, and the thing happens at Metrodome, and we go to Green Bay the next week, and no quarterback, and so that you kind of like, it was almost kind of expected. We find out that Ponder was not going to be him, and then it was going to be Webb, and loved Webb, but we just knew going in there was going to be really hard. And then you look at Blair wide left. It was one of those situations where the momentum of the team was going the other direction. Like we were getting really good. You're peaking at the right time. The Vikings were peaking, and then all of a sudden Detroit happens, and the steam and the air is let out of the balloon, and all of a sudden that momentum is just lost at the exact wrong time.
Let it out.
And so I think every game, every year is a little bit different in that regard of where the team is ascending, descending, and could we, listen, you're 3-4 weeks into the Sam Darnold project, and all of a sudden you're like kind of getting excited about it. Mm-hmm. I come in the one time we lose back to back, and I said the Darnold though, right?
Buffalo Wild Wings Crystal. And you arrived early, and we were staring longingly into a crowd after a bad performance by the quarterback, or mediocre performance at best, and it was quiet and uncomfortable silence, and you just look at me and go, Darnold though. He was quiet for like 45 seconds. Didn't know what to say. Darnold, though.
And did you kind of feel like you were just waiting for this to happen?
No.
In some ways. And again, I wasn't.
No.
Once he put weeks together and all of a sudden months
after
together.
That March tweet Charch put out, he didn't even think about the guy.
And so, I didn't expect it because he had been playing so good and his pocket presence was so good and he was moving around. And then all of a sudden I learned on Monday night that he holds the ball too long and is moving around too much in the pocket, I was told when I watched that football game. So I was a believer. I was all in. I mean, definitely lost the sales in the last week, but I thought we could win that football game without question.
At any level of football, have you been on a team where a quarterback has suffered this much of a meltdown regression that you saw from Sam Darnold for who he was for 16 games and who he was for the last two?
Maybe we could talk about, Kelly Holcomeers. You can talk about a lot of, Donovan McNabb would come to mind when he came here.
On with that.
Yeah. We're just gonna move past that one. Set this one out. You want to talk about? So
you saw some bad quarterbacking, but have you ever? This was just the level of meltdown. The 9 sacks.
Yeah, not within such a short period of time. Where you think the book would have been kind of out on him earlier, but the reality was he played through those things, and he played through like Lockendale and JJ, and now he started to spread the football around and saw different and more things and more opportunities. And Hawkinson comes back, and all of a sudden we have all these weapons, and you kind of get to this point where we're winning a bunch of games in a row and finding a way, and you think to yourself, well, finding a way to win close football games is playoff football.
Yeah.
So, but you got to make the plays in the game to get yourself in that shot.
Isn't that the beauty of optimism, though? As you were talking about that, Chad, I'm thinking like we talk about this team, and 9 to noon in particular. Many can do it different ways. We think about how this team is going to win each and every game. And when you think about what Sam did at Seattle, and then with that border battle, and it got a little tight at the end, certainly
cold-blooded.
I was on a different planet, and the negatives can sit there and go, "See, I knew the other shoe was going to drop. I knew this was going to happen," and that's comfortable and easy territory. I'm living here completely shocked with what I saw at Detroit, and now because of that, certainly less shocked with what I saw in the wild card game. And so for me, 4 days after the season ends, I'm actually, I don't want to say I'm over it per se. I want this team to win a Super Bowl and win every single game. But the Detroit game somewhat helps me get over the playoff loss. Does that make sense? Because I was in shock Monday after that regular season finale, but leading then up to Monday night's debacle, it kind of helps me move forward, if that makes sense.
Do you look at it from the standpoint of, if you look at the momentum of this football team, you look at that first half in Detroit with all the red zone possessions and your inability to get it done, you felt like that was the moment.
Yeah.
Right, when you had all these chances and we could not figure it out. Red zone defense was incredible for Detroit. Our lack of execution. When you look about, like, you want to place blame, everybody wants to talk about who's at fault. It's Darnold's going to make the throws, et cetera. Like, you got to place blame on execution, play calling, the whole 9 yards. And in that case, it's execution in the red zone of missed throws. And he felt like that was the moment where you kind of lose that idea. But I'm in agreement with you. Is the Detroit game shocked me because of what the score ended up being and how we just could not keep Gibbs in front of us. And it was just one of those things. But then you come to the next week and I had like, I'm restored. I'm ready to rock. I feel like you washed that away as a professional, been in that mode. It's like you bury it and move on. We're in the playoffs now. It's a different animal. It's a different season. You start over. And, and I think the way the next game started, the way the Rams game started, it was like, oh, here we go again.
Yep. It was right back to the 7 or 8 plays. Puka wide open over the middle for 20. And then how about that perfect throw from Stafford to Higbee? It was like, oh, we're the Rams are on one. He started like 10 of 10 in the game, I think.
Momentum.
But then the defense, Chad, like, you guys have a right to punch back. After that opening sequence there, it's 10-0. You get the field goal. The defense kind of shut down Stafford and that Rams offense for a good 2 quarters before effectively I just believed that they were running out the clock on this thing and it was over. But I thought the defense punched back.
Well, you were allowed to, from the Rams standpoint, when you get that big of a lead heading into halftime.
Yeah, correct.
You're allowed to just run the football, we're going to boot out, get an easy completion, keep the clock running, shorten this game real quick. And how many possessions can the Vikings get? And when it came down to it, you're going to get, 4 or 5 possessions in the second half if things go really well. Or maybe 6 if you're really lucky and get off the field. And, the Rams were going to let us do that.
You got to give Darnold credit. I mean, when he takes sacks for size, man. Yeah. It's an average of a 9-yard loss.
You do have to block people. You do have to block people.
There's a lot. There's some culpability with that interior offensive line for sure.
When you talk about,
and that's why your tweet was right, Charch.
Thank you.
When you talk about Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback playing football right now without question. Remember when he went to the Super Bowl and took that loss?
Not according to Nordo. It's Lamar Jackson.
Well, he's pretty good too. But either way, let's talk about Mahomes. We're going back to back. The one he didn't win was because their left tackle was out.
Yeah,
they couldn't keep him upright, and all of a sudden he looks a little more average than he always.
Pretty Darnoldian.
Right now, all of a sudden, when you get a guy like Darnold, like how good was Kirk when we could keep him upright and he could be accurate and he could move the pocket just a little bit, and all of a sudden Darnold all year you get pretty good protection, decent at least. His pocket presence was moving around now in the playoff game. I mean, I don't care. You could have had any quarterback in that situation. I just don't think the outcome is a whole lot different in that game because of the pressure he was under so quickly from snap to sack.
When your season's ended, I want to. Yesterday, Kwesi and KFC were
Caribbean immediately,
which is a good call.
Yes,
they talked about the exit interview.
The eulogies.
Yeah. Does everybody does every player get the exit interview? Is it only like captains get the exit interview? And what happens in the exit interview?
Yeah, so I mean, depends on your situation with contract, your situation going into the off season. So there was many years that I was under contract coming into the next year, and there was no conversation, and they knew that I was always around in the off season. Maybe aside from a couple trips I would take with the family. So they'd be like, "Hey, hit me up in February because all these guys are going to leave and not come back, and I may never see you again." So I come back here.
Yeah.
And then, but there were years I was going to free agency. Towards the end of my career, there's conversations about personnel that they wanted to pick my brain about, especially later on in my career when I became more of a trusted kind of captain leader of the team. And
so what would they ask you?
It's here's where we are. Here's what we think of you. Here's where we see this happening. Make sure you're telling your folks this is what we want. So have a conversation with your agent about, here's how we see you. Here's how we see you coming back. You don't get into financial conversations, obviously, but you talk about contract and where you're going to be and the fact that they want you to come back, and that's their last sort of parting words face to face before all of a sudden agent gets in your ear and everybody else gets in your ear about what's going to happen next. And, fortunate for me, the biggest one was when I went into my first, contract year, which I ended up being franchised, was with Leslie Frazier and Rick and that whole crew. And they were over communicating that they wanted me to be here for these different reasons.
That's great.
And we're going to work through something. And then by the time you get to the franchise tag gets signed, that's why I was fired up to come back and sign, because this is where I wanted to be. So it was kind of always pretty easy for me. But there were certainly guys that walked in, left PO'd, and they're like, well, we're not going to see that guy again. He's out.
Yeah, I bet.
And going to be going to free agency, didn't want to come back, didn't like the role.
Right? I mean, if I had asked you at the end of any given season, of the 53 guys in that locker room, who's coming back, what would your accuracy rate be?
Oh, man. I mean, very accurate.
I
yeah,
bet,
and I would say
right?
within, very, very, 95 to 99% accuracy of you understood. Because if you go back to my career, 11 years, I didn't win one Super Bowl, if you remember. So every year you left with a loss.
You remember. And
somebody was unhappy with their role or opportunities in almost every case. Even talk about 2009, you go to the NFC Championship game, you walk into a locker room with a bunch of guys, all of a sudden, 30% of this locker room's gone.
Yes.
Almost at a minimum. And now those guys who have an opportunity to come back and sign back didn't like their role, didn't like their opportunity, didn't like the position they played, didn't like the snap count, whatever it is. There's some gripe that there's always greener pasture somewhere else.
How open is that conversation? I mean, are there, some players are obviously more vocal than others, but is that a thing that's going on? Like, I heard some audio from Shaq Griffin talking about how excited he was for some of the younger guys who are entering a big contract spot. So let's use Cam Bynum as an example. Like, everyone, would you give Cam Bynum some crap in the locker room after a game or after a practice and be like, ooh, that just pumped up your payday a little bit, Cam. Springtime's going to be nice to you. Or maybe the other way. I don't know how vocal guys are about that stuff.
Well, I gave everybody crap all the time. 1,000% of the time I was running my mouth.
You're a bleep talker.
And you would 1,000% know exactly where you stood. I think that's a good sign of a good locker room is when you can have those open conversations and you can talk about things like, guys know they're going into a contract year. They're going, they're trying to earn it. Guys knew where Sam was obviously coming in this year. That's why he's hoisted up after the big win against Green Bay. Like you just get these people know. And at the end of the day, you're all cheering for each other's opportunities in that regard, because at the end of the day, you do it to go get a contract. You do it for financial reasons, other than the fact that you love the game, want to be in the locker room, all the other intangibles of playing football. So it's an open conversation, and when there's unhappiness, when I can think back to my years with Percy. Percy was an incredible teammate in the locker room, but just unhappy with role, amount of touches, wanting to get to a contract faster, just wanting things to happen and be sped up compared to where they were based off how we needed him. And he was unhappy in that way. And that's, how that thing ends up breaking down and he ends up leaving. So, many situations like that.
In the exit interview, do you get to tell them, like, you're in there with Zimmer.
Yeah.
Do you get to tell Mike Zimmer what he was doing wrong and how you need things to be different, or is it all just them? Is this a one-way conversation, or is this a two-way conversation?
So you've never met Mike Zimmer, then?
Correct. Yeah. That's what I want to know. Is it like somebody of the stones to tell Mike Zimmer what he was doing
my
wrong?
First training camp with Mike Zimmer, they just asked me to take a pay cut. I came back in, big chip on my shoulder, trying to go earn him to show this old man with this massive dip in his lip that I can play football. And he, I'm 3 fields away and in Mankato, and he is on the first field. He's screaming across 3 fields of Mankato in this back corner at somebody. We're like, what is he doing? And we're lined up going against this. We're putting in some defenses. We're putting in the new defense against some motions and some looks offensively. And he comes across, and apparently he was yelling at me the entire time. So all 200 yards, he's yelling at me, and he grabs me by the hips and he moves me about 6 inches to the right. And he's like, "Now run it again. That's better." And I'm like, first of all, brilliant. Your old butt couldn't see anything from that far away, but you chose to go yell at the veteran, the leader, that everybody showed everybody that I'm going to scream at this guy, because if I scream at him, everybody's open to criticism, and it just showed you where you were at. So like, I didn't walk into his room in the exit meeting and be like, "Hey, listen, here's what I thought you could have done a little bit better." It just wasn't my approach. But I was fortunate to have a relationship with Mike at the end of the day, to have very open conversations about our team, our locker room, who fit, who didn't, and how they felt about those guys, especially going to my second year with him, and then obviously when I re-signed for my third year with him.
We've been friends long enough that you told us that story on the perch days after it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, that goes back a long time. That's you've been on this station.
Was that the
long.
time you brought one of your dogs who
that was Scraps
peed on or pooped on the practice field at Mankato,
he did not.
I got yelled at, not you?
No, he did not poop on the practice field.
He peed on Brian Robinson's leg.
That's what it was.
He was adorable.
Humped.
He was a showstopper. We did a whole interview with Dalvin Cook holding my puppy. It was gorgeous.
And
so
your
cute.
puppy humping Brian Robinson's leg.
No, there was there has never been any humping on the Mankato perch.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Well, that one.
you have found the Friday funeral for a football friend. And I'm Paul Bearer Allen. Thank you very much for joining. And we'll be back after this.
Football Feast.
That's what it is. Here we are. football feasting at FM 100.3 KFAN. Paul Charchian is the co-host each and every Friday for the football feast. And Chad Greenway, former linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, joins the football feast, generally at a Buffalo Wild Wings during the Viking season, but here in the 651 Carpets Plus studios outside of Vikings football. And here we are. Let me ask you this. When it comes to playoff games, all right, so we have 4 this weekend. When do you remember, hearing anything about coaches who are interviewing for head coaching jobs weeks of games? So in other words, Houston offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick had his interview with the New York Jets. All right, they play the Chiefs tomorrow, like middle of the afternoon. Well, the Houston offensive coordinator had his interview for the Jets head coaching job yesterday. I mean, that's 3 hours minimum, but before it is, I guess what I'm getting at here, we can call it the doors always closed covenant. You got the tight ends coach, I don't know, 6:15 on a Thursday as a question about a protection against a Chris Jones and super special Leo Chenal. And the door's closed, and he doesn't know what to do. And then 2.5 hours later, the offensive coordinator's door still is closed, and he doesn't know what to do. What's the offensive coordinator doing? Well, he's probably talking to his agent or a former National Football League head coach he knows about the proper route to a first-time interview to become a head coach. It's a distraction. I don't know how much you can quantify it, but it's a distraction. Like Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, all right? He's interviewing for the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job today. And they play they play Sunday, middle of the afternoon, against the LA Rams. Now, I mean, I got to give Jerry Jones some props here, all right? Kellen Moore, former offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, fired. Former coach Mike McCarthy, as he left, said, well, it's, one thing that bugged me about him, paraphrasing, is we didn't run enough. So he ends up in Philadelphia, and all they do is run. So Kellen Moore, I mean, I guess he's cock of the walk in this situation, and Jerry Jones needs to have his tail between his legs a little bit. But Kellen Moore's interviewing for that head coaching job today, and they play over the weekend. So the props to Jerry is that he has zero interest in hiring Kellen Moore. He just wants to put a distraction of even an incremental amount on the division rival, the team to beat in the division, and just to throw his mind elsewhere, if only for 3 hours. You ever hear about anything like that?
Yeah, man. If you look at the distraction factor from that coach and how listen, becoming a head coach in the NFL is a one-time opportunity to go financially secure your future
for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life, right? If you never played or made that kind of money, you're going to make $5, $6, $10 million a year for the next 4 or 5 years.
Guaranteed.
And have buyout clauses and have all these other opportunities to go cash in. Now, I understand personally why you are obviously taking that interview. I'm not going to turn it down. It comes from the standpoint of the rules around this could easily be changed if everybody's on the same playing field in some capacity. I don't think it'll ever happen because there'll be tampering, there'll be other things that happen. But what you do is you basically are so distracted by what's next that you can't take care of what's now. And some have handled it better, and some have gone to win Super Bowls, and some have gone to be a part of these really good championship teams, and still gone and got the head coaching job. It's happened, of course, over the course of the NFL history. But when you're talking about a player being in the situation year 9, 10, 11, getting this opportunity to win a Super Bowl, and you have a coach that's distracted and taking all these interviews and flying around and sitting on Zooms and in a meeting for 4 hours, trying to interview for a head coaching job, that's a lot of preparation as well. You getting your resume together, you getting your coaching staff together. Who are you going to hire? Who would you bring in? Who would you be your OC? Who would you be your DC? Like, you have to have all these calls, and you're having all these conversations and side texts. And hey, are you interested? Like, you're building this whole wall of coaches behind you to explain to the owner that, like, hey, this is my squad I'm bringing in. Here's my vision. Here's how I think our team's going to go. And the funny talking point, just to talk about Kellen Moore real quick, is I don't have the stats. You would have the stats, but is this the most rushing yards in the NFL since 1989? Okay.
Yeah, it might be.
Something like that. Yeah. 91, 89.
Between quarterback, Derrick Henry, yeah.
Point being is the league flipping back? Because things are all cyclical, like this all happens? Like, it's just interesting now. Will hires show that. I bring in guys and schemes that are going to do that.
I started adding something yesterday and forgot to continue. It is the amount of rushing touchdowns the quarterbacks playing this weekend have or had during the regular season.
That's a lot.
It's 30-something. It might be a 38.
Yeah.
So you have Lamar, you got Josh, you got Jalen, you got Jaden, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So they're with the 8 quarterbacks and 8 quarterbacks in 4 games. I mean, we're in the 30s here. So that to your point.
Well, just to kind of lead into that is college football is now changing the NFL. I mean, that's what's happened. It's just taken longer than we thought. Because, RPOs and all the things that are happening in college for the last 10 to 12 years has now kind of all the way got there. Cam Newton was clearly ahead of his time, and his size and his ability to stay healthy was kind of before these guys. But now you're seeing it like you now have more. You have more things to cover defensively, and you've lost. A lot of these defensive coordinators who have been coaching for a million years. They saw this, they went through this, they fixed it. Now they went this route of passing and pass coverage and multiple coverages, and having extra DBs over the top of guys. Now it's like, wait a second, we don't know how to handle the option or the RPO because it's all coming back to us again.
I heard former Jets general manager Pat Kerwin, who does my very favorite national football radio show with former Bears quarterback Jim Miller.
It's so good.
And Pat told a story yesterday off exactly what you just said, where he's talking about quarterbacks in college football and how these coaches have them play to win games for their universities. Then he recalled an interview they had within the last year and change with Brian Kelly, coach of Louisiana State University. Ugh. And Kelly, was like, well, yeah, we could have run Jaden Daniels a lot more and probably amassed a lot more yardage, maybe won more games. But part of my job is to get him ready for the NFL. Mm-hmm. And working under center and working play action from under center and going on 5 and 7 step drops and scanning and then running, you have to do that to succeed in the NFL. So he put discretion before valor in the best interest of Jaden Daniels, of what you were saying.
Yeah, that's great. And I think when you look at, what's the talker, right? You can't stay healthy. You're going to get hurt. Jaden Daniels is a slender build, like Lamar Jackson is not the biggest guy. You're going to take a big hit from a linebacker, from a D-line when you're out running, get one of the ribs, whatever. Well, now the rules are so soft on the quarterbacks when they're running and they're in space, you can't do a lot of things you could do 10 years ago. Yeah. That are now allowing a quarterback to run down the field and stay healthy. Because if you take a shot at a quarterback when he's sliding, even on a legal hit slide, like, you're going to get penalized. You're going to potentially, a fine. There's financial. There's all these things. Well, they're now protecting the quarterbacks to a point where it's going to change the game. And I would be interested to see in 10 years, if this continues, if those rules now go back. Because what does a defender do? Not only you can't sack him here or there. Set him down gently, and when he's running down the field, when he's going for a first down, and you got to have it, be really careful how you hit him. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, that's fun.
Time for 1.5 more.
We talked about like these head coaches. You get this life-changing money. Mm-hmm. If you don't squander it, you never even have to work again. But they always do. Yeah. I'm always amazed by this. Jack Del Rio today named head coach of the Paris Musketeers.
What? Do you think that's
what is it that makes these coaches want to never stop coaching?
Do you think it's obviously when you have it could be relationship based at going home, like do they want to go home, spend time at home, do they financial situations, and also that idea that you want to be wanted by somebody, that I'm reaching out to say I need you to be our football coach, and I need you, and that feels good. That feels good for a guy who's had, again, he's been a great player, he's been a great coach, he's been all over the place, and he wants that ego stroke to be like, I'm wanted again, I better go to Paris and coach this team. I'll just Paris and probably getting paid pretty decent, and that's all great too. But there is all that, but I feel like it's a little bit of that. Talking to about Stefanski, our boy out in Cleveland. It's one of those situations that he was one of our closest friends. To see him come up through and to grind and to work and to earn it. And was Cleveland the best situation for him at the time? Well, it was the only situation. It was the time, I'm going to get a head coaching job in the NFL. Yeah. This is life-changing money. And you go through the grind that he went through to make it, to get to that spot. It's incredible to watch him. And that's why I think we're so proud of him, is like he's there doing his thing because he's earned the right to be there. And all these guys have done that as well. It's just happening a little bit quicker now. Guys are getting hired younger. So
way younger. That has changed. Sean McVay changed that entirely. Yes. And it's rare that you can point at one thing that had that much of a change in the NFL. But the Sean McVay hiring changed everything.
I need your best minute on this, okay? Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, has 2 head coaching interviews today. One with the New York Jets, the other with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tomorrow, he is interviewing for the head coaching position with the Chicago Bears. B-Flow. What if B-Flow goes? What if he leaves? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the chances of him leaving is obviously it's there. I'm not sure what the over-under is or what the percentage is, but the reality is there's a chance. I can't picture Chicago going a route other than somebody who's going to really protect their quarterback in that future offensively. So if you bring in Flores, what's the plan offensively? Mm-hmm. Who's the guy offensively? Are you allowing him to hire? What you going to? Mm-hmm. He's the head coach. I think that's one thing he's going to be out on. The Jets just went through that world of defensive coordinator, defensive mind. I'd be curious for them to go that route again after they just fired that guy.
Right.
Literally that same type of mentality in person. Mm-hmm. You have the lawsuit in the fringe that I think is still a talker, although people don't want it to be a talker.
So you're saying don't worry about it.
I'm saying I think the chances are less than 50.
Yeah.
That's just my guess.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Up with Grey Duck?
I'll be at Delano Liquor today, Delano, Minnesota, 5 to 6 p.m.
Hey.
Then I'm going to zip over to high school basketball game tonight for the girls. But I'll be there 5 to 6 p.m. signing bottles.
If you're in Delano, go to Big Boar Barbecue.
Do you think I don't know where Big Boar is?
I know you know, so you should know to go.
So I won't have time, but I'm going to be at Delano 5 to 6. Also, Hockey Day Minnesota next week. Grey Duck is an official sponsor. So if you're part of the hockey world, which I know there's a million of you, go shout out to Grey Duck. Go grab a specialty cocktail, a Duck beer, Bomba Juice seltzer, etc. Love you guys.
My man, love you. And see you soon, all right?
Yep, see ya.
Chad Greenway, the Friday Football Feast continues after